Building great salads is really simple. Once you understand a few basic principles, you can mix and match ingredients to create endless combinations. Today we're making 4 salads and we'll be building texture and flavor into every single one. From a vibrant slaw with a punchy dressing to a creamy lemon tahini potatoes with crunchy and Moorish dukkha, plus a couple of my favorite salads in between. After years of working as a chef, salads were often seen as an afterthought, but if you build them properly, they can easily become the best thing on the table. So let's get cooking. So I want this to be a nice sort of crunchy salad, so we're going to add some pepper. Easiest way to prepare a pepper is first take off the bottom, like so, turn it around and remove the top. This part should just pop straight out, like so. Then you'll be left with the center. You're going to cut down through there, and then just insert your knife and you can roll the pepper around while removing the seeds and all the white parts. Really easy. And then just cut this down into more manageable sized pieces. I'm going to cut the pepper into similar sized pieces as the beans, just so that it all sort of fits onto one spoonful or one forkful. Make it really nice and easy to eat. And then we'll do the same with some green pepper. I'm not going to add quite as much as it's slightly more bitter compared to red pepper, which is really lovely and sweet, but it is a nice sort of contrast in flavor. For even more crunch, I've got some lovely fresh spring onions. These are quite chunky ones, so I'm just going to cut them into sort of slightly thinner strips. And then just like the pepper, I'm going to give them a quick dice. Maybe slightly smaller, as spring onion is obviously quite strong and oniony. I'm just going to add 2 spring onions. You can add more if you like that oniony flavor. We're going to go for a really nice sesame and ginger dressing for this salad. So we'll start with some lovely toasted sesame oil. Really nice and nutty. Then you of course want something acidic. We're going to be going for rice wine vinegar. You could use lime juice if you wanted to. For some umami depth of flavor, I'm going to add some soy sauce. You can use tamari if you are gluten-free. A touch of maple syrup to balance out that acidity. And then of course we're going to add some ginger. I'm going to zest it in so we don't get really big chunks of ginger in the dressing. I'm also going to zest in 1 fairly small garlic clove, or maybe a medium garlic clove. I like making this dressing in advance so the vinegar and the salt has time to work on the garlic and the ginger, making them slightly less pungent. And that is more or less it. I'm going to add a small pinch of white pepper. White pepper has quite a kick. It's less sort of fruity than black pepper, more sort of fresh and punchy. And that's it, really simple dressing. Give it a whisk and that is ready for our salad. Definitely worth letting this sit for at least 10 minutes before dressing the salad. Let all those flavors meld together. Hey everyone, I just wanted to quickly say that my latest recipe ebook is now ready and it's available to purchase, or if you're already a Patreon member, then it's included in your membership. So check out the link in the description, or I'll pop a quick QR code right here. Okay, so the adzuki beans aren't quite finished yet, so we're going to get started on the potato salad. I've got some lovely small little new potatoes here, which I'm just going to give a quick wash. We're going to be keeping the skin on for this recipe, so we do need to give them a good cleaning. These potatoes are all a fairly similar size. We've just got a couple of bigger ones here, which I'm going to cut in half so that they all cook evenly. And then we'll get the kettle on and get these cooked. Okay, so we've just got some nice hot water here, which we'll pour on the potatoes. Whoa, whoa, whoa. If you cook those potatoes in boiling water, the outsides are going to cook before the centers, whereas if you put them in cold water, they'll cook nice and evenly. Okay, so cold water first. Perfect. Okay, then looks like we're cooking these in cold water. So we'll add a generous pinch of salt so they get seasoned from within. In go the potatoes. And we'll bring them to a simmer. While the potatoes cook, we'll start on the dukkha. One ingredient you'll need is toasted hazelnuts. Fortunately, mine are already toasted, but if yours are not, then you'll need to toast them in the oven or air fryer. I'll leave instructions in the method. We will also be toasting a lovely selection of seeds. So we've got lots of citrusy coriander, fennel seeds, nigella or onion seeds, and cumin seeds. So I've got these in a dry pan over a sort of low to medium low heat. And we'll let these toast just for a few minutes until they're aromatic and slightly golden. And just give them a toss every now and again, or a stir, to ensure that they are toasting evenly. And then once your seeds are toasted, just pop them into a food processor or a pestle and mortar, and we'll leave them to cool for a few minutes. Now back to the pan, I'm just going to give it a quick wipe out. And then still on a low heat, I'm going to toast some sesame seeds. I like to do this separate to the spices as they can burn quite quickly. Just like with the seeds, give these a toss or a stir every now and again so that they are toasting evenly. Okay, I'm happy with the color of these, so I'm going to add them in to the food processor with the seeds and just let them cool down slightly. And while they cool, we'll make the tahini dressing. Okay, the potatoes have come to a boil, so I'm going to turn them down to the lowest possible heat. You just want to cook them really gently on a low heat. That will ensure that they cook nice and evenly and don't have sort of fluffy outsides and raw insides. Should be around 15 minutes as they're quite small. Okay, quick tahini sauce. This is my brand of choice. It's called Bella Zoo. Really, really tasty. The oil in the tahini will typically separate from the sesame, so just make sure you give it a quick mix before you use it. And we're going to add around 3 tablespoons here, maybe slightly more. Okay, I think these potatoes are just about ready. They're feeling nice and tender, so I'm going to drain them off. They'll continue to cook slightly as they dry. So I'm just going to leave them to steam dry for a few minutes, get all the moisture off the surface so that the dressing can stick on nicely. If you want an amazing snack, get yourself a date, or a medjool date in this case. Remove the stone and then just dip it in your tahini. It is so good. And then a small pinch of sea salt over the top, and that is a next level snack. You've got the nutty tahini, the sweet date, and then a little bit of sea salt to finish. So good. Make sure you give that a try. It is incredible. Okay, so change of plan. I believe the azuki beans were a little bit old, so they just basically weren't cooking. So instead, I'm just going to use some canned kidney beans that I've got here. Go in with the pepper and spring onion. And then that delicious sesame soy and ginger dressing. Beautiful. And that's it. You've got a really lovely, fresh, crunchy, and aromatic bean salad here. Make sure it's all lovely and coated in that dressing. You could finish this with some fresh coriander, or I've got a little toasted sesame here. And because the soy sauce will slightly discolor the spring onion and the green pepper, I'm just going to finish it with a little finely sliced spring onion to add another pop of green. We do eat with our eyes after all. And there you have a lovely bean and pepper salad with a sesame and ginger dressing. I've got a bit ahead of myself and already topped this one up. Let's give it a try. Really nice and refreshing. This is a really nice alternative to your more traditional bean salad with Mexican flavors. Instead, you've got that lovely toasted sesame oil, umami soy, and that fiery ginger. Poppy's got a nice ice cream treat. It's got yogurt, berries, banana, and some water. Is that tasty? Oh, yes. So I'm going to add the zest and the juice of about half a lemon into this tahini. The citrus is going to really bounce off this sort of coriander citrus in that dukkha. And while you've got your zester, we're going to do about 1 sort of medium clove of garlic, or 1 large. I've got 2 very small cloves here. And then the juice of just half the lemon. Optionally, just a small drizzle of olive oil, and then give that a quick whisk. Get it all nice and combined. And then just slowly drizzle in ice cold water, or the coldest water you can get from your tap. Just add a touch at a time. When you start, your dressing may split, but don't worry, just keep adding cold water and it will come back together. And then once it's a sort of single cream consistency, add in a nice pinch of salt and a nice crack of black pepper. Optionally, a touch of maple syrup, depending on how bitter your tahini is. And there you go, you've got a really nice tahini lemon dressing ready for those potatoes. Okay, so we've got our seeds in here. I'm going to add in our roasted hazelnuts. Also going to add in some nice flaky sea salt. A nice grating of black pepper. You could do this in a pestle and mortar. Mine is quite small though, so it wouldn't work so well. And then last but not least, some smoked paprika. We're going to pulse this into a really nice coarse texture now. We want some good texture in there. Turn on the plug socket, that's always a good idea. And there you go, that is your spicy and crunchy dukkha. Lots of nice texture in there, and it smells just so fragrant and delicious. And I'm just going to pop this into a jar, ready to use in this salad, but also on hummus, roasted vegetables, maybe on like bean spreads on toast. You can use it in so many different ways. It's a great sort of condiment to have in your store cupboard. Okay, time to bring this all together. Let's get your potatoes into a bowl. I quite like to just lightly crush a few of them. You can definitely leave them whole if you want to. Actually, I'll probably just give them all a light crushing. This helps the dressing really absorb into them. Then drizzle over that creamy dressing. Beautiful. Then give that all a nice toss to get them coated. It's going to look like a lot of dressing, but the potatoes are going to absorb it nicely. I've got some fresh herbs from the fridge. I've got some parsley and some mint here. I'm not going to chop up these herbs. I'm going to leave them whole and just fold them through the salad. I think it's going to be really nice. Add a little herby freshness to the salad. You could go down a different route. You could do sort of coriander and spring onions. That could also be nice. But I reckon the mint and the parsley is going to complement the lemon and the citrusy sort of notes in that dukkha. I'll fold through most of these and then keep back a few to sprinkle on top. If you want to chop them up, that's absolutely fine. And this salad is great, both warm and cold, so you've got some options there. Some of those extra herbs on top, and then generously sprinkle over that dukkha. A little bit around the outside to dip those potatoes into. And there you have a lemon tahini potato salad with lots of fresh herbs and that spicy and crunchy dukkha. Okay, got ahead of myself again and tubbed it up, but let's give it a try. This is what salads is all about, contrast in flavors and textures. Here you've got the creamy tahini and potatoes going up against the crunchy dukkha, and then you've got the really nice herbs also going up against the sort of spices and nuttiness of that dukkha. So whenever you're making a salad, think about the different contrasts in flavors and textures, and definitely give this one a go. Mitzi is helping out with the video editing today. Well, helping is one word for it. Maybe not the best word. Lovely sunny day today. Whoa. And now I'm covered in cat hair. We're going to make an amazing sort of citrus spiced tadka style dressing. Tadka is where you essentially bloom spices in hot oil. So I'm adding maybe 3 tablespoons of olive oil into a pan here. And we'll just pop this over a medium heat, maybe medium to medium low. And to get those citrusy flavors going, I'm going to lightly crush some some coriander seeds in the pestle and mortar. I always put my hand over the top to stop them from flying out initially. And then once they look like that, you can add them into the oil. And we'll just let that bloom for around 1 minute until it's lovely and fragrant and slightly golden. Typically you'd heat up the oil and pour it over the spices, but to save on washing up, I'm just going to do it all in this pan. Okay, I can smell that coriander is lovely and fragrant. I'm now going to add in some lemon zest and some grated garlic. And that's going to help cool down the oil and stop the coriander from cooking any further. Smells incredible. Another method of doing this is to heat up the oil and then pour it over the coriander, garlic and lemon. There's less risk of it burning doing it that way. But if you're careful and have it on a low heat, you should be okay. We'll just leave that to cool now for a few minutes. So this is kohlrabi, a slightly unusual vegetable. It's quite mild, sweet and peppery, almost like radish, and it's going to work perfectly in this slaw. Okay, to prepare this rather alien looking like vegetable, also known as kohlrabi, I'm just going to cut off the top bit, and then any of these pieces that are just sort of poking out like so. Just sort of smooth it out essentially. And then we'll get in there with a peeler. A speed peeler definitely makes this much easier. And we're just going to simply peel the kohlrabi. Nice and easy, just like you would an apple. I can smell the sort of radishy, peppery notes coming out of it now. If you've got any bits like this, you can just use your knife to remove them. And then instead of grating the kohlrabi, we're going to cut it into matchsticks. So to make it easier for ourselves, we're going to cut it in half first. So we've got a nice solid base to cut from. And then just cut it into sort of 2 to 3 millimeter pieces like so. And then cut them into nice thin matchsticks. I much prefer this to grated. I find grated salads can go a little mushy, whereas nice little matchsticks stay lovely and crunchy. Might just cut these in half roughly, just so they're not quite as long and easier to eat. And then just pop them into your salad bowl, mixing bowl. It's got a lovely sort of appley, fresh radish flavor, really nice. And then I'm going to do the exact same with some carrot. I peeled this carrot because the skin was looking a little bit rough. There is of course a lot of nutrients in the skin, so if yours doesn't look too bad, you can definitely keep it on. And once again, just into really nice thin matchsticks. But you can add any veg, whether that's celeriac, daikon, cabbage. It's totally up to you. Some fresh apple or pear works really well. I've got some broccoli here and I don't want to waste the stalk, so I'm just going to cut the florets from the stalk. Then cut off this dry bit at the bottom. Use my knife to take off the dry outside bit. You can also use a peeler if you want to. And just like the kohlrabi and the carrot, we're going to cut this into lovely matchsticks. And we're going to reduce our food waste, which is always a good thing. You can also do this with cauliflower stalk if you want to. The final bit of chopping is just going to be some fresh parsley. You could also do some coriander if you like that. So just bunch it up as tightly as possible. Run your knife through it. Nice finely chopped parsley, so it sort of coats the slaw. So you get a little bit with every mouthful. Do a few cross chops through it. Cross chop is where you put your hand over the blade and then just rock the knife through your herbs or whatever you're cooking or whatever you're cutting even. I've ended up transferring to a larger bowl, an actual proper salad bowl. So in goes our parsley, and now we'll finish off the dressing. So into a small bowl, we'll add that amazing citrus spiced oil. Then to that, we'll add a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, a touch of maple syrup. We don't need much as the carrot and the kohlrabi is fairly sweet. And then we'll start with the juice of half a lemon. and see how it tastes. And then really simply just give that a whisk and get it all lovely and emulsified into a nice thick dressing. That's looking perfect. Add a quick crack of black pepper. Wow, so much depth of flavor. I think that's perfect. It's quite acidic, but there's a lot of sweetness in this salad, so it should balance out perfectly. And just pour that over your slaw. Get that spatula back so we get it all in there. And then just give that a really nice toss. And there you go, a beautiful citrus spiced kohlrabi slaw. That is lovely and crunchy. Kohlrabi is definitely an underrated vegetable. It's basically like a really crunchy apple. It is so delicious. And then paired with that sweet carrot and that citrusy spiced vinaigrette, it is so delicious. I think this would be perfect at a barbecue with some like smoky tofu.
Is that nice? Oh, lovely and refreshing. What have you got? You got a big stick.
First tip with salad leaves is if they're looking a little bit sad like mine are, just plunge them into ice cold water for 5, maybe 10 minutes, and that's going to really bring them back to life. And then while they're sitting, we'll make the dressing. I'm going to make the easiest possible vinaigrette you can make, and that is a jar vinaigrette. So we're going to add a vinegar first. I'm going for some sherry vinegar. It's really nice and sort of fruity and subtle. And the ratio of vinegar to oil is going to be 3 to 1. 3 parts oil, 1 part vinegar. So I'm just going to be using olive oil this time. And then for flavor, but also because mustard has a natural emulsifier in it, we're going to add some Dijon mustard, a touch of maple syrup, oops, too much, and a small pinch of salt, and then finally a grating of black pepper. And that's it. And then pop a lid on and give it a good old shake. You want it to taste more acidic than you might think, as the veggies will be sweet and help balance out the flavor. Nice little burn at the back of the throat from the vinegar. That's going to be balanced out by the red pepper and the tomato. Okay, so my next tip is to give it a really good spin in your salad spinner. As the drier the salad is, the crisper it's going to stay, and the better the salad dressing is going to stick. Just make sure you don't do it too aggressively, as we don't want to damage the salad leaves. So you're better off doing a couple of gentle spins rather than one really aggressive one where you completely destroy the leaves. And then for really nice crisp leaves, you can give them a dry in a tea towel for a final step if you've got time and the patience. Lightly pat them dry, and that dressing is going to cling on beautifully and they're going to stay lovely and crisp. So personally, with leafy salads like this, I like to keep them fairly simple. I don't like to add lots of like crunchy chickpeas or crunchy nuts, seeds, that sort of thing, because I find they just sort of slip through the leaves and they distract from the really lovely peppery flavor of the mixed leaves. Of course, that's just my personal preference. You can add whatever you like, but personally, I honestly just have usually the leaves on their own with the dressing, so that you can really taste the peppery leaves and the salad dressing. And then you can either just have the leaves on their own, or you can add in some veggies. I've got some tomatoes and some pepper here. I've chosen these veggies as they're going to complement the sherry vinegar in the dressing. If I was doing like a herby green dressing, I might put in some cucumber, maybe some celery, that sort of thing. So just add in some dressing, not too much, just a couple of teaspoons is great, and just gently toss it through. It may seem silly showing you how to make a simple leaf salad, but refreshing it in that ice water, properly spinning it and then drying it really does make a lot of difference. And of course, making a really nice acidic dressing makes all the difference. So there's a few simple tips for a really nice, simple, leafy salad. Beautiful. These leaves are a few days old now, but refreshing them in that ice cold water, then drying them properly has just brought them back to life. They're really nice and crisp and fresh now. And then paired with that sweet and tangy vinaigrette, it is so delicious.